So when Rabbi Schatz and I sat down to decide what we were going to do in the sermon slot this morning, it didn't take very long, did it, before we got to Miriam. It seemed a really good opportunity to lean into Miriam's wisdom, and what happens and doesn't happen in this parsha. So we're going to be handing around some study sheets. We're going to be doing a little bit of leading from the front. We're going to be doing a little bit of chavruta, and then hopefully we will come back together with more wisdom than we had at the beginning. I always like to bless Torah study. I know some of you may have said this bracha once this morning already, but please indulge me and join me. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech העולם, אשר קידשנו במצוותיו, וציוונו לעסוק בדברי Torah. Rabbi Schatz, over to you.
Okay. Well, I think you need the sheets first, so I'm gonna wait until maybe some people can help Rabbi Silver actually, just to get them around the room a little bit faster. First of all, this has nothing to do with this sheet, but I just want to say, because Rabbi Silver said this earlier, it is such a pleasure to be able to have these two communities together. We do a lot of programmatic things together, but we very, very rarely get to daven together, and this is just so wonderful, and I hope that that there will be many, many opportunities for us to do this. Rabbi Brous said to me that it was a shame that Jacob, my brother, who's all of your intern, wasn't here at the same time to get the two of us up here, so you have to come back, because we at least have to do that. So as Rabbi Silver said, we're going to take a look at this verse that many of you probably know when we experience the fact that there might only be enough for one for every two people. So if you came with someone and you can share, or even if you didn't come with them, but you're just a nice person and willing to share, put your copy up in the... I have Angel here to laugh at all my jokes. Put the sheet up in the air so that people can see extras around the room. Okay. So you can also open a Chumash. We're gonna be looking at Bamidbar 20, verses 1 through 2. And I'm just going to set up the stage, and then I'm going to let Rabbi Silver take us through the first commentary here. Vayavo v'nei Yisrael kol ha'eda midbar tzin bechodesh harishon. So the Israelites, Bnei Israel, arrived in this wilderness of Tzin in the first of the new month. Most of that is unimportant, except for that you should know that they were moving, okay? And moving through a wilderness, which, what do we know about a wilderness? Oh, unforgiving. That was really, I don't know who said that, but that was love. Oh, great. What else do we know about a wilderness? Unknown. Don't cheat. We're almost there. It's unforgiving. It's unknown. An answer that I would have been totally okay with is nothing. We know nothing. That's the whole point of a wilderness, right? It's not a desert. It's not a beach. It's not a valley. It's not a mountain. It's a wilderness. So there's nothing in it. There's nothing that tells us anything about it. Rabbi Sean Fieldsmeyer often says it's a character in its own in the Torah, right? So much happens in a wilderness that it's its own character. Okay, so that's all you need to know about that. Vayeshev ha'am beKadesh. And so they settled in this place called Kadesh. V'tamot sham Miriam v'tikaver sham. So the only thing that we are told here is Miriam dies and Miriam's buried there. What could you imagine could have also been added that wasn't? Yeah, how did they feel about that? Right? Were there feelings? What did you say, Daniel? Right, and some explanation around what they did after she died, right? And the people mourned, perhaps. We hear a lot about that with Moshe and Aaron when they die later on, which we'll hear about in some of our commentaries. All it says is she died and she was buried. Very good. Very good. It doesn't say anything about her family or being brought to them or having them brought to her, which is very interesting. Great point. When we knew that these two communities were coming together for this Shabbat, one of the things that we thought about talking about was potentially the fact that together we form a Chevra Kadisha. So for those of you who are in the IKAR Temple Beth Am Chevra Kadisha, you know that yes, a person dies and then a person is buried, but there is a lot of steps and a lot of intentionality and a lot of spirituality that goes into one step of that to the last step of that. Velo haya mayim la'eda. There was no water for these people. What the rabbis assume is because it says that right after she died, is that somehow those two things are connected. Right? She died, she was buried, there's no water. Somehow those things are going to be connected. That's why I bolded it for you. Vayikahalu al Moshe ve'al Aharon. And they formed community, or they community-atized, that's not English, against or on or for or near Moshe and Aaron. So what do we know about this last sentence? What is this last verse telling us after the death of Miriam? People are angry, people are thirsty. It actually doesn't say that, but it does say they don't have water. What else do we know? Okay, so it's possible they turned against, or they turned towards, or they formed some kind of community around him, which you would have thought they already had, but okay. Any other thoughts? A little bit like Korach, maybe? Yes, they did, and that's what we're going to get to in just a few moments with these commentaries. They mean the rabbis, believe that the death is connected to the water. What I want to suggest here is that all of a sudden, there was recognition of what they didn't have and what they did have. Miriam died. They realized they didn't have water. It actually doesn't say that they were thirsty, which I think is important. It just says that they knew they didn't have water. We can assume they were thirsty, but they didn't have water. And then they turned to come towards Moshe and Aaron. So they realized, oh, we have these two other guys, which somehow implies that maybe they weren't thinking of them before to turn to. Maybe that means they were turning to Miriam, or that they were so inside themselves that they didn't know to look to Moshe and Aaron. Okay, Rabbi Silver. You're so welcome.
This is fun. Okay, so I want to take us through the second text. Yochanan has already taken us there to a point. A lot of our commentators notice that the juxtaposition of the fact that Miriam dies without some of the things that we would expect, as Rabbi Schatz has said, and the fact that the community is then without water. So you can see here, this is a well-established rabbinic teaching. We chose Rabbeinu Bachya's version of it because we are fond of him. His big work is called Chovot HaLevavot. He wrote it in 1280. It's a study of self-improvement, a study of how we can be better human beings. So he writes, the community was without water. What does this mean? As soon as Miriam died, the well, which had traveled with the Israelites all those years, ceased providing water. And we can look elsewhere for this beautiful piece of Midrash. There's a pictorial rendering of it at the top of the sheet where you can see that all of the princes and all of the tribes are connected to Miriam's well, that it was literally Miriam's well that gave water to the community, both literally and metaphorically. The water which the people enjoyed all those years, I'm back in Bachia, was due to the merit of Miriam, because Miriam has a water connection. She stood by watching what would happen to baby Moses when he was in a basket at the edge of the river. Miriam is introduced in the Torah in the presence of water, and so it makes sense that Miriam would be the source of water for the Israelites, and they're reifying this idea. They're thinging it. They're turning it into a thing. What is the thing that gives water? The thing that gives water is a well. But notice Bachya's final sentence. The people do not appreciate this until the well ceased with her death. Because Miriam died, the community was without water. And therefore, the community did whatever they did in relation to Moses and to Aaron. Notice that al in the Hebrew, vayikalu al Moshe ve'al Acharon. Al means, one of its many meanings is on with a degree of force. Yes, they sat on Moses and Aaron. Yeah, they gathered up and squished Moses and Aaron. And what's going to happen next is the episode of the hitting of the rock. Okay, so the one that we really wanted to bring you, all of that was by way of background. We wanted to bring you a teaching by the IKAR, Rabbi Shlomo Lunchitz.
There's English on the back. So
yes,
Hebrew on the front.
we're not making you read the Hebrew. Although if you want to read the Hebrew, you should. And maybe let's, no, the miking won't work for the people at home, will it? So,
Someone's comfortable holding the mic.
yeah, it's okay. Let me read it through, eyes down, and see what he has to teach us. The community was without water. This happened by way of punishment because they did not fittingly eulogize Miriam. Of Moses and Aaron, Torah states all of the children of Israel wept for them, but here that is not said. Only Miriam died there and was buried there. Where she died, that was where she was buried, as if she had died away from their hearts also. I'm pausing to say for myself, I absolutely love the way that he expresses that. Yeah, they forgot her completely. She died, they buried her, move on. Yeah? They did not sense her absence at all. This is why they were without water, so that they would know retrospectively that they only had the well because of her merit. And I'm going to stop there and leave you to explore the rest of that text a little bit in Chavruta. So this is a different idea. This is not so much the well. The IKAR is leaning into the fact that she died unpraised, that she died and was ignored, that she died and in some way was not lifted up, in contrast to her two brothers, for whom we know the community mourned. So this is what I'd like for us to do. I'd like 5 minutes of Torah noise in the room, maybe a little bit more than 5 minutes of Torah noise in the room this morning. We've put 3 questions there for you to turn to somebody and discuss. If it so happens that you turn as an IKAR person to a Beth Am person, or a Beth Am person as a Beth Am person to an IKAR person, harei ze meshubach. This is a good thing. Okay? But either way, just take yourselves through the end of the IKAR text and the other 2 that we have put on the page and address those questions. 3 questions. Why did the community not mourn Miriam? What would have been different if they had? And what does the well symbolize in our understanding of Miriam and her role? I want to hear noise in the room. Okay, 1, 2, 3.
But before the noise, just so that, no, it's okay. Just so that you know what you're looking at, the Shulchan Aruch is a law text. It's the text where we get our Jewish law from. Tehillim are Psalms. Sorry that it doesn't say that in English. So Tehillim are Psalms, and then it's a commentary by Ibn Ezra on those Psalms. That's all. Go. Okay, so let's take a few thoughts. I'm just going to remind everyone that a few thoughts doesn't mean a few sermons. So just maybe sharing one or two sentences, and then if there's more to share on this, we're all going to have Kiddush together afterwards, and you're welcome to share sermons in that space. But if you want to get to Kiddush, we have to limit the sermons that are given. So just a few very short comments. Yeah. Shh. Yeah. Great. Great. Wonderful. So that's a really very perceptive opinion that from the beginning, really from Moses's beginning, really not even from their beginning, but from Moses's beginning, Miriam did everything. She cared for, she provided for, she led. If we think back to Azia Shir Moshe, right? That song was sung starting by Miriam, not Moshe, right? So then when she was gone, instead of them appreciating all that she had given and being sad for her for the loss, instead they were angry and uncertain of what was going to happen in her absence. Beautiful. Yeah, Ellie. Yes, yeah. So Ellie's asking a question based off of what he learned, which is why didn't Moshe and Aaron mourn her or eulogize her? Why wasn't that part of it? I saw another hand over here. I'll come back to you, Gabriela. Yeah. Great. Beautiful. So Susan's words were shared to say that all human life comes from women, right? And this idea that water is a symbol of life, it is also necessary for life. Also, our bodies are made up of a lot of water, right? So the fact that water is now being connected to a life force, both in who Miriam was, but also in what she provided for. Right, beautiful. And also when we think about, this is something that Rabbi Silver and I talked about, a mikveh, right, is used for lots of different types of rebirth. And also the idea of tahara is done with water, right? So it's both life and it's also the sanctification of death. Is there a hand over here? Yeah. Right.
So that was something that seems to be a recurring.
Right. So the obvious, though important to be pointed out, aspect of in Torah and also in the Talmud, unfortunately, very often women are not named or acknowledged or celebrated for the things that they have done or are doing. And so just, what's your name? Jay. So Jay's pointing out here that it's just another obvious reminder for us that her brothers are going to be eulogized and mourned, but that she was not. Gabriella, your turn. Right, they weren't, yeah. Yeah. Mm. Yeah.
People should mourn, should come together whether they.
Great. So even if the people didn't know that she had provided something like the well, which seems to be a connection that we make and that the rabbis make, the fact that she was an important person and had yichus and was connected to other important people should have meant that they remembered to eulogize her, but that we also as a community thought to eulogize an important person in her own right and also connected to the family that she was connected to. Rabbi Elliot Dorff. Right. Yeah. Yeah. So Rabbi Dorff is reminding us, I really don't like to summarize Rabbi Dorff's words, but I didn't like to when he was my teacher. I don't like to now, but I'm going to. Rabbi Dorff just said that we should remember, and this is always an important point when we're studying Torah, that the Torah happened at a certain time, and we are reading into it in the 21st century, and that from then until now, a lot has changed, and egalitarianism is one of those things that has changed, and yet in our Shulchan Aruch, in the way that we understand Jewish law, we mourn for males, females, brothers, sisters, all exactly the same. And we should recognize that back in the day, that was very divided based off of gender, which of course now we also think of as something much more fluid than they did even in the Shulchan Aruch. So we are developing as a people and as a community based off of our own modern day society, which they did not obviously live in back in the time of the Torah. Danielle, and then we're going to move on.
Noting that Moses and Aaron hadn't died yet, so they've never mourned for anyone else. So
right.
This is the case with everything they've been going through in the wilderness. They are constantly at almost a childlike level. They don't have, as a people, sophisticated emotions or practices, and so this is a learning moment for them. It's why they end up being able to mourn Aaron and Moses later, much more sophisticatedly, much more meaningfully.
Yeah. Because
they've actually never gone through this yet.
Great. So Danielle's making a very similar point to Rabbi Dorff that we actually haven't yet mourned Moshe and Aaron, right? We in this room know that they are going to die and how the people mourn for them. But in this particular moment, we actually don't. And so what Danielle's pointing out is that just like everything in the wilderness, we are learning how to be a people. We are learning what to do for the people that mean something to us and how to create a tradition around the things that we are experiencing. And therefore, to read into what we did or did not do for her might not be as fair because we haven't actually experienced the other stuff yet. We just are critical of it because we know what happens. I'm going to turn it over to Rabbi Silver. I see a lot of hands. I'm going to pretend like I don't. But you can tell me what you think later.
Thank you. I would for sure invite people to keep hold of the sheets, please. Keep them, take them home with you, use them at Kiddush to continue your conversations. The idea of this was to be able to prompt a deeper conversation because it is about deep things. I want to focus as we close on the opportunity that was missed here. That through very innocently, arguably, not knowing how to mourn somebody important, that Moses had not even learned yet what it is to mourn a relative. Something was lost, and the patterning here is, in the words of Rabbi Joni Mitchell, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Yeah, the people just didn't realize what it was they had. Everything is kind of retrospectively tilted. And to me, that speaks, that's such a deep human truth about all sorts of things, and particularly around death and around grief. I want to close this. I want to invite us to ponder what it would have been like if the people had been able to stop, what it would have been like if they had been able to grieve Miriam, what it would have been like if they had appreciated what it was that she was bringing to the community while she was alive and not waiting until she had died in order to think, oh, something is terribly, terribly wrong. And in the symbolism of the water, perhaps, we see that when she died, a part of their life is taken away as well. I like to give homework. Optional homework. It's mission impossible homework. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, homework. But as we were putting this talk together and as we were putting the sheet together, a poem showed up in my inbox. I subscribe to Poem a Day from the American Poetry Society, and it fits these circumstances. I'm going to close out our study by reading it. I have copies here. Please take it home with you. I do need to tell you before I read it, it's a poem about missing a funeral. It's spoken in the first person, and the Thomas who she mentions is her husband, who is himself an orphan. So this is by Delana R.A. Dameron, and it's called When Mama Died, I Lost My Air. When Mama died, I lost my air. Hit with an anvil of grief, in dreams the rains came, streets filled with sorrow. I'm standing with Thomas at the bridge edge, seeking relief. The sound of her voice is fleeting. Time is a thief, she will never return to me. Thomas says not to follow his lead, don't hold on to it, it's heavy, this anvil of grief. Without funerary activities, they say, you live in constant disbelief your loved one is gone. You seek the light, if only for a moment, to borrow, so you don't follow Thomas to the bridge edge, seeking relief. I focus what little energy I have on the children, my chief concern. When I'm clear-eyed, I know I'm one of God's sparrows. Yes, Mama's dead, but he will lift the weight of my anvil of grief. A flood of sadness fills my days. Is this the end? It is my belief Mama's spirit is heaven-bound, her earthly body is hollow. There's no use running graveside, dragging Thomas, seeking relief. Now I know the ways of Thomas's moods, flitting like a leaf in the fall breeze, grounded, far away, grounded. With Thomas, tomorrow's tasks, kiss our children, tell them we love them, lift off our chests the anvil of grief. It's no use if we both run to the Bay Bridge's edge, seeking relief. Please take it and the sheets home with you. It bears a close reading, that poem. And thank you for studying with us this morning.